Welcome to the Marketing Millennials, the No BS Marketing Podcast. I'm Daniel Murray, and join me for unfiltered conversations with the brains behind marketing's coolest companies. The one request I tell our guests, stories or it didn't happen. Get ready to turn the up.
I think salespeople are hard to believe sometimes. I guess maybe is the root of it, right? We are naturally sort of distrusted, not believed. I think it's hard for prospects, even when we've done the work to build the rapport and build the trust, it's hard for them to always believe that we truly have their best interest at heart. And marketing can really come in and use that, I think, voice of the customer and almost be a second voice to sales that says, no, this really is about you and making sure that you get the benefit, the value that you deserve, that you want. It's not about the salesperson closing the deal.
What's up, everybody? I'm here with Leslie. I know this is a marketing podcast, but we love our partners in sales, and Leslie's one of the best in the sales realm, so I had to bring her on the podcast. So welcome, Leslie, to the podcast.
Thank you. And I will say I'm a salesperson that has deep affection for my marketing counterpart. So we're a good match.
Could you describe how you got into sales, and then we could just chat about our topic at hand?
For sure. Yeah. Stumbled into sales, didn't want to do it, thought it was all the bad things, right? Super slimy, super high pressure, manipulative, con artist. It was a hard no for me, but I did want to use my college degree, so silly, right? But I was young and thought that you still went to college and then used your degree. So I joined a business intelligence company in a sales role, thinking that later I could pivot into more of a operations or a marketing role, because that's what I went to uni for, and just immediately fell in love with sales because I realized it was actually a profession that was deeply rooted in curiosity and understanding and communication rooted in helpfulness. So once I figured out that sales wasn't evil, it was actually about helping people, it was, I knew it was going to be my lifelong profession.
So we talked a little bit before the show about how marketing should embrace the sales-led approach, and then how also sales should have that deep affection about marketing. Let's first dive into why you think marketing should embrace the sales-led approach. What does it mean for marketing to embrace the sales-led approach?
Yeah, I think one of the clearest examples that I see marketing teams doing really well, we were talking a little bit about how sales often takes more of that one-to-one or more personalized approach. So when you see marketing come in to support on things like account-based management campaigns, that is more of a sales approach, I think that that's closer to how marketing can have a greater impact of over-indexing on things that we are certain are valuable and relevant to a specific segment of our audience, instead of the traditional or historical marketing approach, which is creating one message that is usually very company-centric and then blasting that out to every single person in our TAM, in our total addressable market, without taking maybe the time or putting on the resources to segment, increase on value, index on relevance.
Yeah. So one thing that we also chatted about, so there's two sides of sales, right? There's outbound and then there's inbound. So let's talk about inbound because it's more marketing right now, and then we could talk about outbound a little bit. So a lead comes in that's pretty qualified, it gets passed to sales. How should marketing be efficiently handing off that lead to sales? And then what should marketing do after that lead is handed to sales?
Yeah. So my take is that they should do nothing, although you then gave me a really good suggestion immediately afterwards. But I think when it comes to correspondence, the number one suggestion I have is that once somebody is in a sales-led motion, they are having a conversation with the company, all of that correspondence needs to come from a human being that works at the company. We want to make sure that we are not overlapping on comms and everybody listening has heard that rant, right? our prospects are getting too much communication. They're getting this newsletter and this email from marketing and this sales approach. So I think part of it is just ensuring that we have like a single message going out. Like there's a bit of consistency in the message and one clear call to action that we're taking, of course, the value-based, the relative approach, but like making sure they know they're dealing with a human, not a marketing at or an info at email. And I think that creates a much nicer experience for those prospects as they're engaging with our company.
Yeah, I actually reached out to a company just to test their funnel the other day, and one of the first emails came from a no reply, when I filled out a form, and it was just why are you sending me a no reply? So what am I supposed to do? Just wait for the sales rep to contact me? At least make it seem like it's a person if you're gonna do it, and tell a sales rep, because no reply means okay, I can't contact you until a human gets to me. It didn't feel human at all. It felt very stale process.
Yeah. There's a company that I work with that started with a sales-led motion and then moved to a PLG motion. And so I was going through their automated PLG onboarding, and it was coming from a no reply email. And not only did it feel like they didn't really care, right? There was just no personalization. There were real questions that I had that would have allowed me to increase the price point that I was buying at. It would have allowed me to move from freemium to a paid edition much quicker, but I had nobody to ask because I replied to the onboarding email, not realizing it was a no reply, and nobody replied. It went into the ether. So I think there's also opportunities that are being missed to create those shorter sales cycles, to upgrade people to paid accounts, to create a more immediate and a deeper connection with our prospects that we can miss if we're not giving them a single point of contact with a clear message of what we want them to do in this conversation with our team.
I think also one of the points I want to ask you is sometimes I think the problem that happens is that a lot of the time the lead that is handed to sales isn't even ready for sales to take on. They're not educated and stuff like that. So what is the point that a lead should go to sales, and marketing should be okay, I'm done with this lead, versus the opposite where I'll go start with that question. When should marketing be okay, this lead is qualified enough that should go to sales? Because I think the problem, what happens in a lot of organizations is market teams hand people off that are just click something on the website and stuff like that, and then they expect sales to close that lead. So when is the right moment for sales to take over?
For sure. Oh my gosh, so many debates, right? The MQL versus the SQL. Should sales dev sit under marketing, or should it sit under a sales revenue leader? I think the basis of it, Daniel, is that so often when we decide what our scoring system to make something that, MQL, SQL, it's very us-centric, right? We created this white paper and somebody clicked on it, so that means that they love us. And I think we can all acknowledge that's so rarely the case. Attending a webinar, it isn't necessarily indicative, or downloading the white paper, reading the case study isn't indicative that they have a problem that they are seeking an immediate solution for. And even if they are, I think one of the biggest gripes or one of the biggest disconnects is that folks are sent over as MQLs that are not decision makers. And it's not marketing's fault, right? They are given their scoring criteria. A lead hits whatever score it is, 80 points. And that's what makes it an MQL. So they send it over. They're following their process. But there's a conversation that's missing across that entire customer commercial function of what a qualified lead is to sales in terms of product fit, timelines, decision-making ability, and how that needs to be reflected in the MQL qualifying process. And I think it most often comes up when, or at least for me, it's when you get the MQL that's been an MQL off and on every 6 months for the past 4 years, right? And they never buy, but they keep downloading and they keep showing up. And it's, I think some of those, there's a lack of continuity in terms of what truly makes a good lead for the business. So marketing's doing what they are told to do. They're following their process and they're doing it well. It just isn't always what sales needs.
Yeah, I have a theory on it that I think the leads that should be handed to sales are the ones that have shown intent. And what I mean by intent, it means they've requested a demo, they requested pricing, they've requested something that shows that they are in a buying behavior. White papers and stuff, are they still in educational research mode? Some people, let's say like if you're running an ABM motion and it's a key account and something like that, maybe. But I think like the goal of marketing is to make sales easier, not the sales process harder. And the way to make it harder is to get more people to send sales the people that are showing the highest intent at that point in time. So I think like if it is like a hand raiser or stuff like that, you could maybe hand it off to like an outbound team to send educational stuff, get that human touch, get that other side. But I don't think that marketing should hand off anything that hasn't shown the intent to buy, because that shows that they're not ready for the product usually. And that means you got to do more education to get them to show that, or something you've done wrong in the marketing process that happens show.
And then I think that goes back to the whole like role of SDRs and where they sit between marketing and sales. Because if somebody has maybe not explicitly raised their hand where they should jump straight to an AE that is that, product expert that has the domain expertise to get them into a proper sales cycle, having a sales dev team that can bridge the gap with those more personalized educational pieces where it's not the messaging from marketing, which is maybe education on like the job to be done and that we offer a solution to that, or, sharing how we've helped similar folks in the industry, like getting that brand recognition and that credibility. I think once marketing has completed that and you do have folks that are engaging with the company, there is that recognition there. Like marketing's done their job, right? Like they've created the foundation of education. They've built a little bit of credibility, maybe a bit of FOMO. That's a perfect place for sales dev to come in and not be the only point of contact, but blur the lines between the demand gen and the lead gen functions, where there is some of that organic, people can come to us activity going on, but also some of the, explicit outbound that is hyper-personalized, that is valuable, that is relevant to say, it is not you in terms of, you are a X title out of this type of company with this type of revenue. It is like, you, Daniel, for these explicit reasons, you are the person that we want to talk to right now.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about I know we talked before about marketing not sending communication out to prospects and so that means emails, newsletters, bugging that prospect during the cycle. We also I shared the idea of just air coverage, I like to call it, just keep them top of mind with ads and stuff like that. I think there's other ways though that marketing can support sales in this process, and it's not through communication and stuff like that. I want to get your thoughts, but there's content, case studies, all that stuff that marketing can hand off, educational pieces that can help sales in that sales cycle be better, educating the process. So what are some things that you ask of your marketing companions or partners when you're in that sales cycle? What does a salesperson need to be successful when they're talking to a prospect?
I have been really lucky to have some very strong marketing partners throughout my career. I also spent a huge chunk of my career in the research, consulting, business intelligence space. So it's marketing in a marriage with product. Some of the most important things that I have been able to get from my marketing team, I tested ABM for the first time in a company and they built me custom websites, the dream, right? And they were custom websites that could be adapted once somebody entered the sales cycle. So, that's something I could never do by myself, amazing, incredible to be able to use their skill sets. Other things that they have done that have been hugely instrumental for me are engaging in voice of customer conversations when I am trying to bring somebody across the line that is maybe in a region or an industry where we don't have as many logos. We're trying to penetrate something new. And I have been able to go to my marketing team, my product team to say, I really need data on this or a case study on this, or just some sort of depth of use case to help me bring this, 100K plus deal across the line. And they've taken that and they've gone and had those conversations and then created the collateral that I can share back to this prospect. So I think there's this amazing opportunity for marketing to be able to engage with our current customers, to partner with product, and then synthesize it in a way that makes it like really digestible and accessible to that prospect and makes them I think salespeople are hard to believe sometimes. I guess maybe is the root of it, right? Like we are naturally sort of distrusted, not believed. I think it's hard for prospects, even when we've done the work to build the rapport and build the trust, it's hard for them to always believe that we truly have their best interest at heart. And marketing can really come in and use that, I think, voice of the customer and almost be a second voice to sales that says, no, this really is about you and making sure that you get the benefit, the value that you deserve, that you want. It's not about the salesperson closing the deal.
Yeah, one thing we did at Service Titan, which I think was one of the smartest things we did, was we used to hire people from the industry, like as directors of customer advocacy and stuff like that. So they would be the people who would go with salespeople on the call and be like, hey, I was a former customer of Service Titan. We were the same people. So it was like that trusted partner that you could partner with sales to be like, hey, this is a trusted partner. Usually like marketing teams, like good marketing teams have someone on the content team that understands the industry so well that you can usually bring them on some calls to help with like, especially enterprise. We're talking enterprise now, not like SMB quick, like 5 to 7 day sales cycle things. Enterprise stuff where you have people, because they want to hear that, hey, I scaled my business with this. I was at some of the pain points with it. They need that trusted partner. And if you don't do that, you could do the secondary thing, which is find the customers that you have in your database that are already doing that are successful in your product, that are doing great things, and try to get them on the call to advocate with you as well. But I think one of the coolest things is that Service Titan do was like bring people in from the industry to bridge that gap so salespeople didn't have to like always fight the good fight on call.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. Actually, at the last company that I worked at before I left to do my own thing, that was a strategy that they took, bringing either members from our CAB, from our customer advisory board on calls, or just like general folks from the industry. One of my favorite closing stories ever is that a lead that I had been nurturing for like 3 years, a chief procurement officer at Toyota, who was not a customer yet, did the reference call for me for the CPO of AT&T that closed that deal. And Toyota was not a customer, but because we had, through the help of customer success, through product, through marketing, because they'd had so many trusted touch points with the organization, they knew the value. It wasn't the right time for them to join, but they like really knew the value and they knew it was the right time for this peer, their colleague, to join. So they actually did the reference call for me that closed that deal. And that was, sure, certainly like the sales-led nurture was important in building that relationship, but that relationship existed before I joined the company, and a lot of it was owned by marketing.
Yeah. Also, I want to ask you some things too so what are some things that you do? So now you have your own company. What are some things you do to help? Because the problem right now that a lot of organizations are having is like they have to be efficient with their sales cycle. They have to make sure that they close deals efficiently. And the way to do that is usually improving conversion rate in the funnel, which is either like lead to sale, but usually a salesperson is involved in a salesperson is involved in the whole cycle, but some orgs have SDRs in the middle of that sales cycle. So what are some tactics you've been using to help companies improve efficiency, improve conversion rate in the funnel today?
Yeah, a lot of what we're doing is updating their copy, their LinkedIn copy, their email copy, their cold call copy. It's not good, Daniel. It's just still not very good. And so one of the things we were talking about off camera is that my methodology is earn the right. Like at every point, every touch point we have with our prospects, with our customers, we should be earning the right to their time, to their attention, to their consideration, to their money. And when I think about tightening things up for my clients, a lot of it is pivoting the language away from the I, we, our, like very product feature dump focused language, which is what most sales copy still is. Like we can sort of pretend like it's not if we live within our LinkedIn sort of echo chamber where everybody's an expert and everybody's doing all of the right things. But that is not what is happening in the real world. Most sales copy is still what historical sales copy it has been. Very product focused, very customer focused. A lot of, hello, I am blah, blah, blah name, your account executive at blah, blah company. So one of the big pivots that I make is really getting rid of that I, we, our language and replacing it with language that is focused on things the customer actually cares about, which hint folks, it's not you or your company or your product. It's either the problem they're trying to solve or the opportunity that they are trying to seize, right? You either have to help them get away from the pain, which is, the go-to, or access that gain. So that's a big one. And then the other big one is making it simpler, which might be a bit counterintuitive, particularly for marketers, because I think they tend to be copywriters that like maybe more flowery language, right? Like they really want to tell a maybe a more extravagant story with their language, but the copy that we see performing best when it comes to sales sequences, either outbound or follow-ups, whatever, is really short copy, short, simple sentences with simple words that are very, very easy to digest. Our customers right now are more frazzled and more overwhelmed than they've ever been. So writing really lengthy, complex emails, it's sort of, in one ear out the other or in one eye out the other. That analogy doesn't make sense. But, it's if you're sending something that makes you sound smart, makes you feel smart, but it's hard for your prospect or your customer to digest it quickly, you're sort of already losing the battle before you've even gotten started.
I think it's people try to complicate things so much, but sometimes I wouldn't say this is a hard change to make, but the answer is always simple and people tries to get the hard answers. But like you just said, changing copy, that's like something you could do in marketing too. I think even like marketers could learn this. I mean, I always preach that like simple and clarity wins over everything. Like the goal is to be understood in marketing. It's not like when people add that fluff and flowery things. I think that fluff and flowery things are more for when you're trying to tell a story up front, try to educate, not when someone's already in a cycle that is already trying to buy, that someone doesn't have time to reach out to you. They want to know like, why are you reaching out to me? What are you going to do for me? How are you going to help me? Like, that's all they think about is me.
Right. How long is it going to take until I actually get the benefit you're promising? Like, what do I need to do to get on the other side of this? But, I think to your point, Daniel, is that many orgs are using copy that was written by marketing. A lot of folks that I work with, their copy was given to them by marketing. So it isn't sales copy, right? Like it is marketing copy, and those two things feel different. And a massive difference between marketing teams that I talk to or work with that I think are like really exceptional and ones that maybe have some progress to make is how much time they spend talking with customers. And most marketing teams have zero conversations with customers. And then they're the ones writing the copy that is supposed to like speak to this customer that they don't have a relationship with. So the great news for me is that I'm able to come in and like really affect some powerful change with some fairly small pivots to the, the length, the style, the tone of the copy. But, I think a lot of organizations, unfortunately, are still stuck in that rut where sales copy isn't being written by sales because there's nobody in sales that has been trained to write copy.
Yeah, that's a big part too, is like people don't we train sales on how to answer phones, how to do a good script, but like one of the most important communications is written, and it's not happening. I also think one of the problems that's happened for years that I've seen is a lot of people just go find best practices on the internet and implement best practices. And the best practices on the internet are going to tell you what you were saying, like, hi, my name is X, Y, and Z. Like, I'm from this company. I do this and this. And usually best practices are what people have seen for years and years. So you can make small changes of and also a lot of people, what they forget is they don't put themselves in the shoes of like a buyer and say, if I got this email today and I had 30 meetings on my calendar, like Leslie has 5 different podcasts today, and I had 10 minutes to respond to this email, do I have 10 minutes to read the email, then 10 minutes to digest the email? Then it's no, I have 2 minutes to read the email, 2 minutes to reply, yes, no, I'm interested, like this kind of call. They don't have that time anymore. And if you add a bunch of fluff, if you add a bunch of best practices, if you add something that doesn't stick out in the inbox, you're just going to get lost in the void.
Shocking statistic. The data right now says that folks spend about 10.8 seconds scanning an email. So that means you have 10.8 seconds for them to choose to immediately delete it, save it for later, or action it. So if you are not writing your copy in a way that somebody can quickly make the decision to hopefully action it, but at least not immediately delete it in 10 seconds or less, like you're not going to get the reply rates or the click-through rates that you are hoping for, because you're simply making the content too difficult for them to consume in that 10 seconds, or for them to make a decision on in that 10 seconds. So it's that's a pretty tight timeline. Like, we really have to get to the point, and that means removing things that are introductions about us or our company, removing those fake platitudes like, I hope you're well. We need to get to the point, and like you said something so smart, which is put ourselves in the shoes of somebody reading the email. And if you get an email from a stranger, it's like, hello, my name is, my job title is, my company is, and my company does. It's a delete. It's an immediate delete.
Yeah, and I also think there's steps before, if you're doing cold stuff, that you could build rapport without even selling first. The best salespeople I've seen, at least that try to capture my attention, is they'll engage with me. They'll engage. I'll be like, I saw you do X, Y, and Z. They kind of hype me up as a person, and they show that they did their research, and then they'll go into be like, hey, they will just leave it at that. And then they'll come back another time and then say something like, you know what, you said something interesting here. I think I can help you with something like this. Would you want to get on a call to talk strategy about X, Y, and Z? And then it's okay, you've shown interest. You actually care about me as a human being. And then now you're going to be helping me with something, not getting on the call to help me with a problem. And then usually the solution is your solution, but you're acting like you're trying to help me with a problem, which I think that's the biggest thing. The most thing is hey, we do these cool things. Do you want to see it? And usually, no, I do not want to see it unless it's something I've already been looking at in the market before. So,
which data tells us only 3% of the people we reach out to are actively looking for the solution we sell. So that's not really where folks want to place their bets. But I think for anybody that is selling to a group of folks that are really active on social, or, doing webinars, writing blog posts, doing public speaking engagements, what a privilege for you. What an incredible way to blend those lines between demand gen and lead gen and really take a social first approach. And I don't necessarily say social selling, just social, get to know the person, engage with them, listen to that podcast, read their posts, write comments, because you are increasing the familiarity, and there's a bit of reciprocity that you're creating there as well. So that when I do finally reach out to you to say, hey, can I, run this idea by you, or can we chat through this to see if there's any fit? You know who I am. I've been engaging with your content for quite some time. You're probably more likely to say yes. A lot of us sell to people who do not live on LinkedIn like you and I do. But there are still plenty of ways to reach out to those individuals that are not generic, that are not the like, oh, you breathe air, I also breathe air. Here's my unsolicited calendar link, book it. And some of that might take a little bit more digging. It might be more rooted in like domain expertise, going and looking at the CEO statement to see what the CEO has said their priorities are for the year, and then kind of backtracking to think, okay, well, the CEO's number one goal is growth, and this person is sat in finance. How is a CFO usually responsible for driving growth in this type of organization? Okay, it's profit margins and whatever else it is. And then really speaking to that, where you're showing that you have a deep understanding of the world that they exist in. And that's kind of what we're doing with social selling, right? Like, we're trying to be where our customers are having conversations. And if your customers aren't having conversations on social, fine. But like, try to get that peek behind the curtain to figure out what conversations are happening that you're just not seeing typed out on, LinkedIn, Reddit, wherever. So that when you communicate with them, you're saying something that matters to them.
One question I asked here, and I'm going to flip it in a different way for you, but what is a sales hill you would die on?
Cold calling is not dead, I think, is the biggest one. Like, not only is it not dead, but if you are not building at least 2 channels, preferably 3, into your outbound approach, and if you have 3 channels and one of them isn't cold calling, you simply are not doing what it takes to win in this environment.
I love that. I just think the number one thing in just like marketing, and I even think like outbound, is like the first goal is to get attention. Like, the first goal is to get someone to, like, you grab someone's attention, and you have to be creative with cold calling. You have to be creative with email. You have to be creative with all these channels. But the first goal is to get attention. Once you got attention, then you got to figure out ways to keep the attention. But people forget that part. Is like, the first goal is like, hey, how am I going to get someone to grab their attention? Marketers forget this a lot. Salespeople forget this a lot. But you have to get someone's attention first to be able to even sell them. And I think like creative ways, but also that's a great way to be like, okay, I sent an email and now I'm going to call. Maybe they won't answer, but I'll leave a voicemail that says, go check my email that I just sent you. So then they like prompt to.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. So you just have different lines of communication.
I think one of the ways that, like, one of the data points that people will call out to invalidate the efficacy of cold call is like, connect rates or response rates to a call versus to an email or to a social touch point. But what you said is, that's all of it, Daniel. Like, yes, would it be great if our prospect answered on the call? It sure would be. But I am not making phone calls because I think every single person is going to answer. I'm making phone calls because I'm then going to be able to leave a voicemail, and I'm going to leave it in that same like LinkedIn message structure of about 3 sentences that are short and simple, because I'm going to assume that even if they don't listen to it, they'll probably scan it on visual voicemail. And the purpose of the voicemail is not asking for a call back. I have not earned the right for that call back. The purpose is to point to another touch, that LinkedIn, that video, that email, that draw, whatever it is, to point to another touch to increase the open rates, the reply rates, the click-through rates on those other touches on different channels. So it's all about giving our, like, of course, the attention piece that you mentioned, like 100%, but it's also about giving our prospects, like meeting them where they're at, like giving them an opportunity to find us and reply to us on the channel that works for them, instead of being the type of seller that's like, well, I only do LinkedIn because like LinkedIn's what I'm really good at. So I'm just only a social seller. And it's like, that's fine. And that is something that did work when the economy was booming. But like, reality check, the economy isn't booming anymore. The concept of inbound has never been tested during a proper like multi-month or multi-year recession. Like, inbound is still a fairly new concept, all things considered, which people like, they don't get that. Like, they don't get that HubSpot just popularized that concept, in like 27, or like 2007, 2008, like it just started happening around the last recession. So I think, like, don't be afraid to build other muscles and test other channels. And instead of making it about where you like to sell best, maybe make a little bit of space to see where your customers like to engage with you best.
Yeah, I think the best point is like be where your customer is. That's one thing. And then also allow them to have different ways to communicate to you. For me, like I will never call someone back, but I wouldn't mind communicating on like, I'm more of like a text and like email communicator. Like that's how I communicate. But I know some people who hate texting, hate emailing, and they would rather call. So there's like, or they might want to go in a chat bot. Like there's like different ways, but also that's understanding your customer and understanding like how they like to buy. Because some industries buy differently. Like some people, like I was in service design, plumbing. Most people are in their office, like because they go to the office because that's how they run their plumbing companies. So like cold calling works because you're calling a company. Like it works for that industry. Sometimes if you're in an industry where you're reaching out to marketers, maybe it's best to use communications that marketers like, which is maybe a more email, LinkedIn, those type of things. So it's just figuring out what your customers like to communicate, but also adding, like you wouldn't put all your money in one stock and like write it out. Like that's like the most riskiest things to do. You have to put your eggs in a couple baskets to be effective. I just want to give you 1 or 2 minutes to plug yourself. Where could people find you? Where could people find the infamous Leslie? The stage is yours.
The infamous Leslie, huh? Most certainly LinkedIn, just my first last name, Leslie Venetz. I'm a LinkedIn top voice right now. Like, oh my word. Feels a little bit unbelievable, but grateful for it. Otherwise, my handle on most things is at B2B Sales Coach. So like Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I just started a YouTube channel 90 days in. Very exciting growth so far. So you can find me there. TikTok, I'm at Sales Tips Talk. Still growing that channel. Over 30K. How many people do you have on TikTok now?
Not that much on TikTok, but my IG just had 50K. So
Woo!
So then we're climbing.
That's a hard place to grow right now. 50K on IG is big.
Yeah, we're starting to do YouTube and YouTube Shorts, but I've always been like, I'm not the best at videos, so that's like also a lesson for people. Like when you're starting, stick in the channels that you're great at, and then you can figure out the other channels as you go. Right now, like written form and audio form, I'm good at. Video, I need improvement, so I'm trying to dominate in those channels, and then when I have time to do the other channels, I'll start doing other channels.
That makes sense. For YouTube, all I'm doing right now is taking my cache of podcast webinars, LinkedIn Live, Speak, whatever it is, and I sent them to one of my freelance partners, and they edited them into TikTok content originally, and I tested it on TikTok, and it did badly. So I had all this content. I thought, where else could I test it? Where else could I use it? And started YouTube off the back of that, and it's performing really well. So I haven't actually made any new content for YouTube. It's completely been a practice of repurposing old content.
Smart.
Yeah, it's going well, and it's something that I can completely delegate to a trusted freelance partner. So it's a place I can grow without having to show up as much as I need to show up on LinkedIn to grow there. But anyways, Sales Tips Talk, YouTube at B2B Sales Coach, LinkedIn. I also created a micro community that I'm so excited about on Patreon for business books, which is patreon.com/businessbookclub. So if people like books, reading or listening or talking about them, check it out. We would love to have you.
Well, thank you so much, Leslie. This has been great. We had a great conversation. I'm excited. Everybody go check her out on LinkedIn. Top voice is hard to get. And also she's crushing it with sales. And if anybody needs help with their funnel, which I know a lot of people do, hit up Leslie.
Yes, please hit me up. I love that inbound lead flow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thanks so much for listening. Keep tuning in to hear more great insights from the coolest marketers from around the world. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and follow the Marketing Millennials podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, I would greatly appreciate you giving us a 5-star rating. It helps bring more marketers into our community.